The following program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.
Hello, I'm Carl Seidel, host of The People's View. The show is sponsored by the Nashua City Republican Committee, and if you like to attend our meetings, they're the second Thursday of every month at 6:30 at the Crown Plaza. And if you want to find out more about our organization, you can go to nashuagop.org to see our website and learn about the events that we have.
Welcome to The People's View.
Hello, and our guest today is Charlie Arlinghaus of the Josiah Bartlett Center in St. Anselm's. Charlie, why don't you tell people about the center and your event that's coming up next month?
Oh, thank you, Carl. And first of all, thanks very much for having me. And I do want people to know that, we do a lot of research and work and analysis on the public policy of the state. And that all comes from individual donations. We have to earn or keep every dollar every year. One of the ways we do that is we have an annual fundraising dinner on June 17th this year, where we're honoring Steve Forbes, which I think will be interesting.
That'd be very interesting.
Well, Steve wrote a book called How Capitalism Will Save Us, which I think is a perfect as far as my point of view is. And so if people want more information, all of it will be on our website at jbartlett.org soon. But and feel free to send money. That's all I'm saying. So,
okay.
Anyway, enough of a commercial, but thank you for letting me do that.
Well, you have a little bit of a staff that you have to support too.
We try to do what we can.
So lots of things still happening up there at Concord. The Senate has the budget now. What do you think they're going to do with it? I mean, they made some comments, and I don't know whether you consider them promises or not, of making sure there's something in the rainy day fund and that some of the other funds are.
There's a lot of questions about the budget, and people who are looking in from the outside don't always know this, but you'll know this having been there a number of times, is that the budget's a very complicated document. In New Hampshire, it's always a bit of a difficult haul to try to put it together. Mm-hmm. I mean, we have to balance existing spending programs, which tend to grow a little bit faster than our revenue sources grow. And so every year there's a bit of a struggle to do it. The House side of the process comes first. And basically the House, particularly in a year like this, when you have a House and Senate who are in more or less the same philosophical place, and a governor who's not, mm-hmm. The House has to take a very rough form and bring something together. There are going to be some issues with that. Their revenue estimates are done very early instead of very late. So it's not exactly clear how much money we have to spend. It will be much clearer as we go on in the next few weeks. And then the Senate frankly, I'd rather be the Senate, because I'd rather go second mm-hmm. after it's like being the sculptor who's doing all the finishing touches after somebody hammers out all the arrangements. Well, I think what we're going to see is there's some discussion about what's going on in the Health and Human Services mm-hmm. budget. I think a lot of observers would like, if there were more money, to spend some of it particularly on developmental disabilities, where there's still a waiting list, and there's some issues there. There are questions about the Meals on Wheels program and how and whether that has the appropriate funding that it needs or not. It's a very popular program. Those are two areas where I think there's probably broad agreement. In addition to that, every department and every agency and every advocate of every program thinks they should have gotten more money. That's the way budgets work.
Well, that's what the governor also wanted. I mean, the
governor would like everybody to get more money.
With $2 billion more, she cut it back to $1.1 billion, and now we're bound to $350,000 or something like that.
Something like that. And I think that as you get closer, what you'll see is that everybody will talk about what they're not getting. People tend not to focus on what they are getting. I suspect that at the end of the day, the Senate budget will look a lot like the House's. There'll probably be a little bit more money in the Health and Human Services budget. Mm-hmm. And there are two big question marks that we want to watch. The Senate would like to increase the amount of money we have in the rainy day fund, mm-hmm. the state's reserve account, which has been underfunded for years mm-hmm. and has been a problem for years. And we would like to, if the money were available, to get that back up. The trade-off, though, is if you're going to set some money aside for that, it means you're not spending it on something else. And I think there are questions there. Then the other part is the House budget is balanced partly by taking money out of a dedicated fund. In this case, a renewable energy fund. And people who like dedicated funds think that if you're going to raise a tax or a fee for a specific purpose, you can't then not spend it on that specific purpose. There are other people who would argue that no money should be dedicated, that everything should compete against everything else. I think the middle ground is, well, we should have few dedicated funds if we can. But if you are going to dedicate them, you should try to. So they want to try to pull to not take that money if they can. Although the problem is that everything I just named, you can't do all of that. You can only do some of it.
Going to see how they sort that out. One of the things that we have seen, though, even though people have been complaining about what might happen, especially with Health and Human Services, it seems to me that they always wind up with a little bit extra money they haven't spent. And that kind of negates their complaints. We balance the budget. We have money left over. The last time they had money left over, they had to spend some of it right away and only put half of it into the rainy day fund. So, there's a problem there too, where you don't have the understanding of what we're supposed to do with surplus money.
There are always a lot of questions, and I think one of the dangers of this process is because that happens a lot, where the revenue estimates are very conservative. And then in the second year, keep in mind why revenue estimates are conservative, because you're estimating out, you have to pass a budget and then estimate what's going to happen in the next 24 months after you pass the budget, which is the last month of which is maybe 28, 29 months after you're making that estimate. And so you need to be a little bit conservative so you don't get ahead of yourself and find yourself holding your hat. But because we've gotten pretty good at that, there's always some group of people who think, oh, we don't have to worry about it. We don't have to worry about too much on spending or what we're spending now. I think in the budget that's now ending, that's going to end June 30th, we saw that happen, where the governor in particular, the governor, keep in mind that, and I'm going to go back over the last year, there's been this constant fight between the Senate, which before the last election was still a Republican Senate, and a Democratic governor, and the Senate said, we need to manage our spending. Will you tell us where we are? You are the executive branch. You need to be giving us more information. Where are we relative to budget? What are your department heads telling you? And she refused. And part of that was because we know now, looking back, that Health and Human Services had overspent in some areas. And they were hoping that it would all work out in the end. And it kept not working out in the end. And when we got to the end of the budget, all of a sudden changes have to be made, and we're not sure where all the money went, and there's some problems here and there's some problems there. And it's part of the reason this budget has become so difficult, is because we're not really sure, is because we put off some decision making until now that would have been easier to make if we made it a year ago. But we were hoping everything would get better. And in budgets, hope is a bad thing. You need to plan, not hope.
When you've been part of the team of experts we bring in to help us out with the budget, in a way.
Sometimes.
And,
I'm not saying they always listen to me.
No.
Or that they should.
Well, I think you're one of the better ones that I've listened to anyway.
Thank you.
But I was wondering, in your interaction with either the Finance Committee or the agencies themselves, have you really found out whether they analyze how they spend their money? And are they getting a good bang for the buck? Because I've not heard that.
Well, as with anything in state government, the answer is a little bit yes and a little bit no. There are some agency heads or division directors or commissioners of a whole department who are actually very good at this and who do a much better job at this than other people do. I was particularly fond of Chris Clement at the Department of Transportation, who had very much a mindset about that, about let's measure things, let's do metrics. And I've heard the commissioner of the Department of Safety talk about this as well, is that, you can't manage what you don't measure. But not everybody does that. And I think that part of it is that measuring things takes time. Measuring things is a process in and of itself. And what people would rather do is let's keep doing what we did last year, and we have a sense that it works pretty good, so let's not bother with it. There's been a cultural issue in state government in New Hampshire for decades, really. And people who talk about measuring there's been a mindset created around them and said, yeah, we measure some things. We measure enough of what we should measure. And on a couple of pilot programs on developing a metric, people develop bad metrics. And so somebody said, well, we don't need metrics because like we did that once, and what did that really tell us? Yeah. Well, good metrics versus bad metrics. I think it's changing as the departments change and as management comes in that has some private sector experience, that has been outside of state government rather than just rising through the ranks. They're used to having to measure. I think you're right there. But we have a long way to go. Well, unfortunately. Just to bring up one example that I've heard as we did the capital budget, one agency came in, and the reason they wanted this program to be done, it appeared on, we have an auditing department there that comes in, not only audits the financial part of the operation, but in the process part of it, and makes recommendations. And they came in, well, this is supposed to take care of a 2010 audit report. So that's, 5 years behind the time they heard about it. They're finally trying to correct it. And there's too much of that. And maybe the governor was looking for a COO. You know that part of the budget, which got wiped out because they figure that the governor's supposed to be COO, or at least the commission heads are supposed to be the COO of each agency, and see that it operates properly. There's a recognition anyway that they're not doing something right. Well, I think there is, and one of the least known aspects of state government is what you're talking about. The Office of the Legislative Budget Assistant has a separate audit division. I think their offices are even outside the State House. That is. And they do, frankly, I wish they could do 3 times of the work that they do, because these performance audits, they're financial audits, which are very important too, but the performance audit will uncover things. And notably, for example, something easy to understand, at one point they decided administrative services should be putting the insurance policies that they take out to bid, and they weren't. And that we could save millions of dollars, a few $1 million a year. And somebody once said to me, yeah, but how many millions are we really going to save? 2, 3 million? And I said, 2, 3 million is real money. Let's not, you give, if it's nothing to you, go ahead and give that money to me. I could do a lot with $2 million. That's right. But they need to do a lot more. The notion of the governor wanting to appoint a chief operating officer for the state, I just thought it was the craziest thing I ever heard. I said at one point to someone, I said, if we do that, then we need to stop paying her. Because what's her job? But I think there's sort of a broader problem in state government is that somebody gets put into a position, and there's so much inertia around what that position is, that you do what you've always done. And that's a safe place to be. This is what we did last year. This is what we did. This is what we're going to do next year. And so we're not going to change anything because change is scary in government. Well, change needs to happen sometimes. And it's so much so that when someone said, okay, we could be more efficient, that someone said, oh yeah, we could be more efficient. We probably need someone else to do that because it can't be us. And it's this very sad commentary that, why can't we become more efficient? A lot of us have to every day try to become more efficient, whether it's doing your dishes a little faster at home, or your wife will make sure you have a list of things to do when you get home, and or something else. But we all have to do something. I like to use the word effective. Effective, which is doing the right things right. And you have to do the right things. One of the examples I bring up sometimes when I get into conversations like this is what we did with the Justice Department 4 years ago. I don't know if you remember them just starting their call center up in Concord. Oh, I do, vaguely. We had to bribe them by saying, you want $1 million more in your budget, you're going to have to implement this. And we gave them a couple of people who were legislators who had been doing that in the commercial end. And they went a little bit kicking and screaming, but they bought it and they organized it. They came in under budget, and it's so effective that they wound up getting
not only solving the problem with the phone calls, but solving other problems that came up when people called in and tried to get something done, because these people worked as a team. And that, you know, if they learned something in Coos County that they could apply to Hillsborough or any of the other counties, they did that. And now that's operating. They've gotten onto the computerization of the whole department very fast. You can do what do you call it? The small claims court.
Oh, yeah,
Everything
sure.
on computer, including the hearing, if you want.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
Yeah. And
oh, see, now that's we should be in a position today where, with technological advances, we don't need we can do the same task more effectively with fewer people, and you don't always see that. I mean, it used to be the case that, you know, every executive of a certain level needed an assistant or a couple of assistants or secretaries or whatever, and it's just not the case anymore. Everybody, you know, when you have a computer and you have a laptop or you have an iPad or whatever you have these days, we should be able to do things more efficiently.
That's right.
Although you walk around state government sometimes, and it is a little bit like going back in time. Some of it's very efficient, some of it is very modern, but other parts of it, you look at things and you think, oh, so that's what computers used to look like. It's a difficult thing.
There is and then we still kill a lot of trees too with paper, paper everything. In fact, that's one of the things that bothered me. I was on a business subcommittee in my term during 2011 and 12, where we were going into the one-stop shop program.
Sure, yeah.
I don't know what's happened to it, but it's sort of stuck someplace on hold. And people are still doing things by paper instead of having the forms on the computer and you can communicate by computer. No, they get a paper in, oh, this is wrong. Do it over again. It sends a package back to the applicant.
It's interesting, New Hampshire, and I don't know if this is a cultural thing or what, New Hampshire seems to do a lot less online than most other states do. And I get why there are security issues sometimes, so there's some things you might not want to do online, but it seems to me that there is no reason for any business to ever interface with the state of New Hampshire except electronically. And that ought to just be the way things are done, and it is the way things are done in some states.
Yeah,
and we need to get there.
Well, talking about that, what do you think about how we get the economy going a little bit better here in the state?
Well, it's funny. I think, well, it's not funny, actually. Economic development is, I said to someone the other day that, you know, you don't live in the state you think you live in. That we think of ourselves as living in a high-growth job state, and this is a dynamic economy, and there are a lot of options. There are discussions about, you know, how do we keep young people here? And the answer to so many things is jobs. Our economy used to, you know, the job growth was terrific and was the envy of most other states. For the last 15 years or so, it's been flat. And we have, you know, we have some medium to good years and some medium to bad years, but we're relatively stagnant. The economy isn't falling apart. We're not in any danger of becoming Maine or Vermont. No offense to Maine or Vermont, but we're not growing. We're stagnant water. We're not drying up. That has to change. People talk about how do we keep young people here. We keep young people here if you have a job for them. If you graduate from college and there's no job for you, you're going to move too. And we need to avoid that. So what do we do? Well, there are a lot of things we can look at. I think we should look at anything we can think of. I point out a couple things. One obvious thing is business taxes. Our business taxes are higher than
Neighboring.
almost anywhere in the country, and then in neighboring states. Neighboring states are looking at lowering their taxes. Rhode Island just did. New York is lowering theirs. Massachusetts lowered theirs 4 years ago, all getting down below us. Maine is looking at lowering theirs. And ours, our 8.5% corporate income tax, is just not something to make you attractive. It makes us one of the 10 worst states in the country. And to be one of the 10 best states in the country, we would need to be at 5, not 8.5. That's a big difference. And that's a change that will take some time to input because it's only one measure. Frankly, the thing that I think ought to be on everyone's mind more than it is energy costs.
Definitely.
In January of 2015, if you look at energy costs, we paid in the state of New Hampshire, all sectors combined, paid 65% more than the national average. Not than a good state, than the national average, than an average state paid. in that climate, if you're a big energy user, why would you locate here? Realistically, you can't. And by the way, we would like a lot of big energy users to locate here. In the industrial sector, we're actually more like 94% above the national average. And in a situation like that, if you're the corporate vice president in charge of where to put a new plant or where to expand a new plant, it's very easy to just cross us off the list and say, what are you kidding with those energy costs? We need to start doing something about that. We need to start doing something right away. And for 20 years, no one wants to talk about energy except in broad, how do we have more solar panels kind of way. And nothing against solar panels per se, but I want someone to focus on cost. And, my electric bill is outrageous. The state of New Hampshire is not spending pennies per kilowatt hour, yes, but it's not pennies that we're spending. It's hundreds of millions of dollars more than we should be on electricity. And more than anything else, and I think this is true if you talk to any major industrial user of electricity in the state of New Hampshire, there is nothing that keeps them up at night more than energy costs.
Yeah, I've heard the comment that if we hadn't started the company here, we wouldn't today. And that's the only reason we're here is because we've established ourselves here.
I talked to a big company and I said, why are you still here?
Yeah.
And talked to somebody at a big company. And the guy said to me, he said, we're still here because we're here. Yeah. He said, but we're not adding jobs here. We're adding jobs. We're adding a lot of jobs at other facilities. Yeah. None of them in the state of New Hampshire. And I said, and is that, and he said, it's essentially electricity. Not entirely electricity, but it's almost entirely electricity.
Oh, electricity, and how do you get electricity? Some of those gas, so we need gas too.
Well, I mean, frankly, if somebody said to me, how do you lower electric costs? And I said there are only three ways. One is a nuclear plant, which is not, frankly, just not going to happen. And the other way is there's cheap hydro in Canada that we should get here some way that we can. By the way, anywhere to New England, because energy prices are set on for the most part, on a regional grid basis on the 6 New England states combined. So I don't care where it goes as long as it goes in New England. But we need more stuff. So one is hydro from Canada. Northern Pass is very controversial. Could be that, could be some other way, but get me cheap hydro from Canada. The other is that in the winter, gas is a problem and we need more gas. And there are 2 or 3 major pipeline proposals, one of which cuts through some of your listening audience. There have been pipelines in New Hampshire for almost 100 years, and they're doing fine. And we could use another one. That would make an enormous difference.
Yeah, I think people just see one accident and they run for cover, but you're right. You have to deal with that, and I think we just ignored it, and I think it's time. What about the education end of it? Do you think that needs any? Well,
education is always an issue, and for the most part, people would say New Hampshire has a decent educational system. But I think that, as with anything else, what do we want in education? We want more opportunity for more kids, period. And you want greater opportunity. You want greater opportunity, particularly in science and technology. We want more kids in science and technology. You're going to do better in life if you have a scientific background. People need to understand that humanities degrees are great, but you need a scientific background. People need to start taking an interest in science, not in
early on
12th grade, but in 3rd grade. And so we need to do more of that. I think, and have long been a proponent of charter schools as a solution for the state. Not because any charter school is inherently better than a non-charter school. That's silly, of course. That kind of debate is silly. But for so many children, they need another option. There's a great charter school in the Nashua area, the Academy of Science and Design, which is a wonderful science and technology charter school. I toured a terrific charter school in Manchester about 2 weeks ago, which is a Montessori charter school. It is the only public Montessori school in the state of New Hampshire. And it's just it's a different way of looking at learning. And it's Maria Montessori is brilliant by some people's standards. And it might not be for everyone, but it's for some people.
It's been around a long time. It's now really blooming a little bit more. I know how old it is. 50 years ago, we used it on our kids.
Oh, there you go. And it's now, so Montessori, that method has been around for a long time. Yeah. And again, it's another option for more people. And this school was it was amazing. And the kids are, energetic. And it's in Manchester. And so you're talking about kids from a wide variety of ethnic backgrounds. something like a dozen or 15 languages spoken in the school, and it's people learning, and more kids learning in more ways is just a good thing.
Well, one of the things I've always worried about with all the problems of so many languages in the schools, that maybe we're not really focusing on those children to get them language equipped so that they can really get more out of the rest of the education, fast. They try to fit them in too early, and they don't develop their language skills very quickly.
I think people have talked to me in the past, and I'm not an education expert by any means, but people have talked in the past about one of the most important things early on in your career, by third, fourth, fifth grade, is being proficient in reading. And proficient in this case, we're going to talk about being proficient in reading in English, because that's what your education is going to take place. If you are an English as a second language learner, or a new English learner, there's a new term every year, and I can't keep up with them. But it's important not just to get you good reading skills so that you don't feel left out and left behind. Right. But it's important to get you up to date on language. And with so many children, I mean, one of the great things about kids is kids learn like from a fire hose, and they're just wonderfully absorbent sponges of material, and we need to take advantage of that. And but reading is very critical, and learning the language is obviously a key part of that.
Well, I had one experience with my children that they experimented with in the third or fourth grade. They started taking a foreign language, and they did that for 2 years, and then they dropped the program, which I was sorry to see. But my daughter went on and took French in high school, but that was a really great thing. That's, as you say, at that age, they really pick it up. They learn it real quick.
It's interesting that learning another language makes you, and it seems counterintuitive, but makes you so much better at your first language, and it helps you learn your second language, and your thinking is just so much enhanced by that. And I feel bad for my French skills are relatively pathetic, but I took French in high school and then in college, and at that time I could speak French. Today we went to Montreal and I could order off the menu, and that was about it. But,
well, at least
I would hear people talking and I'd be like, cheese, he just said cheese. But we should all practice more.
Well, let's see if we can get to change the state a little bit. And Charlie, I'd like to make sure you're coming back. And
I'll be back soon.
Okay, a couple of months after we get the budget and we find out how next year is going to be.
Let's do it.
Okay, thank you very much again for your time.
Good to see you.
See you.
The preceding program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.